Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Hello and welcome to Authors on Mission podcast, the podcast committed to exploring the strategies and insights of established experts who have achieved remarkable success in their fields. I'm your host, Danielle Hutchinson, Chief Creative Officer of Authors on Mission, and today I am so thrilled to welcome Teri M Brown, an award-winning author whose journey is as inspiring as the book she writes. Her latest work, 10 Little Rules for a Double-Butted Adventure, is all about her incredible journey across America on a tandem bicycle with her husband. And it's just an amazing story, such a fun tale, and she has also many other published works that we'll touch upon, but more than anything, we're going to talk about the life-changing lessons Teri learned while pedaling across America, how these experiences shaped her writing, and how her rules can help all of us navigate our own journeys. So with all that in mind, Teri, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here with you.
Yeah, same. When I first saw your book, I was like, wait, this is so cool. As somebody who, I personally traveled around the world twice. I have never traveled across America. Craziest thing, right? I've never really been off the East Coast here, so I'm very inspired and I love this aspect of it. I'm really excited to dive in. Man, I don't even know where to start. I guess I'll start by asking, my usual question is, what led you to writing your book? This is a little different for you though, because I understand you were writing it as you traveled. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I wasn't yet a published author at the point that we went across the United States, but I kind of had visions of being an author. I was writing manuscripts. I wasn't really showing them to anyone. I had been in a really, really bad relationship. It was an emotionally abusive relationship for 14 years. And I got out of the relationship and I started writing, but I was still pretty damaged. There was a lot of yuck still in there. So I wasn't really showing anybody my work, but I still had like visions of maybe someday figuring out something. And I thought, well, I can start by keeping a blog, and I'll keep this blog as we go across the United States. And so I kept the blog even while we were doing training rides and getting ready and those kinds of things. And I think one of the reasons that I decided to keep the blog was I was reading blogs as we were getting ready to go across the United States, and they didn't seem to be honest. Like, these people were doing things like, oh, we rode 75 miles today and I felt great and everything was great and it was just great. And I kept thinking, am I the only one that when we do 75 miles, I feel like dying afterward? Is it just me? And so I thought maybe people would want to hear from someone who was not an athlete, that this was not normal for them, that this was something outside. And so, I just started keeping this blog. And then when I got home, and I'm reading it over, trying to kind of like assimilate this, like, wow, I rode 3,000 miles on a tandem. I started noticing like these little lessons that I was learning, and I didn't even realize I was putting them in the blog. But you're writing at the end of the day and you're talking about things, and you start reading this and you see the same things coming up. And then you see the aha moments happening of, oh, look, I just learned something pretty valuable about this huge adventure we're taking. And I took those and created 10 Little Rules for a Double-Butted Adventure.
Hey, I absolutely love that. It just seems to have come, so naturally in this process. Yeah. I mean, of course, the actual act of traveling was, not very, natural or anything. I love that reference you made. So many people write a nonfiction book or memoir, whatever it is, and they forget to add in that element of, failure or difficulty or whatever.
Right.
Right.
Right. And I thought that's so unfortunate, because the failures are part of the whole experience. Like, that's where you learn things. When you have success after success after success, you learn absolutely nothing. Look at me, I'm great. I'm always great. I mean, you don't learn anything, but when you start to have to dig deep because things are hard. That's where you learn and that's where you grow. And I don't know, I just wanted to be able to show it from a non-athlete's point of view. Look, I'm doing this huge thing. It's really big. It's way outside my comfort zone. When my husband and I met and started talking about doing this kind of ride, I had not been on a bicycle in 40 years. Yeah, this was not Teri's just going to do normal Teri. This was way outside of my comfort zone. And I just thought writing about it from the aspect of someone who's not an athlete, who's not a cyclist, who hasn't been doing this for years and years, and this is just an extension of what I've always done, would be kind of a cool way to see what it was like to ride this bicycle.
Yeah, definitely. And what's interesting too is, when I was reading through it, you even have just like these really powerful raw moments in there. Like there's one scene you were crying on a boulder. There's only like a little bit left to go on that particular part of the trip, but you push through it and you also, were just so vulnerable. So how do you, articulate that in your books, right? I feel like you had a really great balance of describing that, but also using it as a lesson to us. What was kind of your methodology explaining that situation?
I think my biggest thing is I try to be really honest. I know a lot of people say, oh, I would never put myself out there like that. I would never tell people about me crying. I would never tell people about, wanting to quit. I would never tell people about, feeling so angry you wanted just to throw things. I just can't imagine. And I can't imagine not letting people know. Would it be embarrassing? I mean, I guess it's a little embarrassing that I'm standing on the side of the road crying. But the truth is that every single person that I have ever talked with has stood on some side of the road crying, whether it's an actual road, whether it's, standing in the shower, screaming into their washcloth, whether it's, whatever it is, right? We've all had those moments, those times, those things, and we all know what that is. So there's really nothing embarrassing about it. There isn't anything to hide. The truth is I'm not an athlete, and I went on an athletic adventure and it was hard. And there were times that I cried, and there were times that I was frustrated, and there were times that I was joyous. And I just feel like if you can be real in your writing, and whether that's like this nonfiction that I wrote or my fiction books that I write, trying to make my characters have real feelings, real problems, real issues, real aha moments, real joys, like how I feel or how people I know feel, those books always resonate more with me. And so I just try to write the way I would want to read.
I like that, write the way you would want to read. It's such an incredible thing that a lot of, writers in this, genre forget about, right? It's not
Right.
all peaches and happiness.
No, and that's okay. I can't imagine going on an adventure, a true adventure, and having every day be perfect. Like
Yes.
that doesn't even make sense. My normal life every day is not perfect. And so, you go on this adventure where you're on a tandem bicycle out in the heat and the rain and pitching tents, and it was the summer of COVID, for goodness sakes. We're going to run into problems. And I don't know, I just felt like honesty was the best policy, and it seems to be working. So
Yeah, and that's just one incredible aspect of your book itself. It's just that raw vulnerability in it, but there's so much more to it as well. For example, there's the idea of facing your fears, which hand in hand with that, I believe there was a Lolo Pass that became a fixed
yes.
anxiety. How did this change your perspective on facing fears? And also, can you explain to our audience exactly what the Lolo Pass is too?
Yeah, so Lolo Pass was our path over the Rocky Mountains. You have to remember, we're on a tandem bicycle. That's a 2-seater bicycle. And tandems by nature are heavier than regular bikes. So there's 2 people on this heavy bike. We're pulling a trailer with all of our camping gear. We have bags hanging on the tires. We have backpacks on. We're heavy. And we have to take this thing over the Rocky Mountains. Well, in my mind, that was the test. That if I could make it over the Rocky Mountains, we were home free, despite the fact that we were over the Rocky Mountains and still had over 2,000 miles to go. But in my mind, that was the thing. Well, it was the thing that I had to conquer, and it became the thing I was most afraid of. What if we don't make it? What if I can't make it? What if it's too hard? What if? And so I started, like, that's I fixated on that. That was the thing. Lolo Pass, Lolo Pass, Lolo Pass. Well, we finally made it over Lolo Pass. And it was difficult, but I mean, I made it. We did it. The last 2 miles was really tough. We had to get off the bike and push. We were way up high. I'm used to being on coast of North Carolina where it's very flat sea level. So we were up high. I couldn't get enough oxygen. I mean, it was a little bit tough. But once we were over that pass, I thought, we're home free. Well, the very next day, we had 2 huge hills that were as difficult as that last 2 miles of Lolo Pass. And time again, we came upon things that were very difficult. And I realized that I had put all this time and energy into worrying over this thing that turned out not to be as bad, and then did not plan appropriately for everything else that we would meet. So the next time we met this huge thing, I was like floored, flabbergasted. Oh my gosh, what's happening? We should be done with all the hard stuff. So I wasn't really properly in the right headspace for the next thing that hit. And so I kind of learned, like, what did I learn from that? Well, first of all, the thing you fear probably isn't as big as you think. You know, you have this monster that you've created in your head, and it turns out not to be that big of a deal. And then I think the other thing is just to recognize that those kinds of roadblocks, they can pop up anywhere. Not just where you expect them, but literally anywhere. And you kind of need to be prepared for them. I don't mean fixate on them, but know in your mind something can happen and we might need to change plans, make it, you know, do a detour, find a way around, stop for a little bit and reconvene and figure out what we need to do next. Instead of me, I just felt like I was in a panic. Oh my gosh, this next road, we can't get it, you know, and it's because I wasn't ready. I don't know, I guess I had anticipated like perfectly flat, beautiful roads for the next 2,000 miles, which is ridiculous, but there we were.
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, that's just an incredible, you know, metaphor for life in general, right? You just kind of, you know, you think that you reach a certain point in life and it's going to be home free, happiness, like, you know, you get married, happily ever after, you get the job you want, happily ever after.
Happily ever after.
Yeah,
and even you get to my age and you say you're going to retire and happily ever after, and it just doesn't work that way. I'm not saying that you can't find happiness. I'm just saying that it isn't ever after. It's not from this point forward, nothing bad will ever happen. It's just not, that's just not the way it works. It's just not the way it works.
Yeah, you just have to always be prepared for what's next. Like you said, you can't, you know, all your worry into one thing because, you know, what's around the next bend, it's going to be that, you know, even taller mountain. So I guess, you know, branching off of that, I think it is important that we chat a little bit about, you know, what it was physically like to be on that bike, especially with your husband too. I mean, I'm sure it was just such a cherished memory to be with him. And, you know, you mentioned to me before this podcast that it's so good to talk about him and really just cherish these moments. So would you mind sharing a little bit about, like, you know, those everyday moments that you remember from the trip?
So you have to think about this. We were on a tandem bicycle. So we were arm's length apart.
Like, back is probably like right in front of you.
Yes, you're just like this all day long.
Here, did this while you both just like sweating up?
I think that, you know, you don't, when everybody stinks, you don't notice it. I think we were just fine. We both didn't smell good and we just got used to each other. I don't know what it is, but so we're riding and we're together, and to ride a tandem, you have to work together, right? To set up the tent at the end of the day, you have to work together. To cook your meals, you have to work together. We were never apart. So for 3.5 months, he and I were together every moment of every day, except when I was in the bathroom. I mean, literally everything we did was together. So we tell everyone that we have something we call tandem time. And tandem time is, we said the 3 months of this trip was like 20 years of marriage. And so we came home from the trip and had been married 1.5 years in earth life. And we had been married 21.5 years in tandem time, is what we told people, because we really did. We did everything together, but we laughed. We learned about one another. We rode angry twice and learned very quickly that it doesn't work, just does not work. And so we very quickly figured out how to fix problems. So when we got irritated, which you're going to do, you're around someone all day, working with them all day, you're going to find something they do irritating. We figured out how to fix it instead of putting it under the rug or walking around angry for 4 days, wondering when he was going to apologize or any of those things, because you can't ride a tandem bicycle angry. I mean, you can, but it's miserable. It's miserable.
Because I feel like you have to like even lean like certain ways with the person. So if you're just angry and you're tense,
you're stiff, and not only that, but he was the captain, which is the one on the front. Perfect for him. He is a cyclist. He was a cyclist for years and years and years, and I was not. So it was better for him to be the one watching out for cars and doing all of the other things. And he is an excellent captain. He would make sure that he wasn't hitting the bumps and that the speed was perfect for my cadence and his together and everything else. But when that day that he was angry, he wasn't as kind. Now, I'm not saying that he was mean. He didn't like go into a pothole, but he was angry. So he was pedaling faster than I felt comfortable with. Everything felt jerky. I was trying to talk. He was giving me one-word answers. Everything just felt horrible. Mm. And so we ended up at a Dollar General. And I got my drink and something to eat. And I thought, this is the perfect place to stay. There's a bathroom, there's air conditioning, there's shade. I'm not getting back on the bike. Not until we fix this. So I'm eating my snack. He comes over and he says, all right, it's time to go. And he's normally a very happy, kind, loving person. But he was, like I said, grouchy. And I said, no, I'm not getting back on the bike. He said, what? I said, not getting back on the bike till we fix this. And he said, fine, let's fix it. And I said, I don't think you're ready yet. And I got up and I moved down the sidewalk and I continued eating my snack. And about 15 minutes later, he came over and he sat down and he said, you're right, we need to fix this. And we did. And I had said something, I guess it was snarky. I'm sure I was tired and just kind of grouched back, and he didn't like the way it sounded and he took it wrong, and we apologized to one another and got back on the bike and were able to ride. And it's amazing because we used that then in our marriage, even once we got home, that sometimes we need to maybe take a little break, maybe a 15-minute, step away from it. And then rather than hold it and hide it and be miserable with it, just go to the person and say, so this was done. This is how I felt. We probably need to work this out. And we just found a way to do that. And it was excellent. It was probably what people call a tandem bicycle divorce machine. But for us, it was not. It was actually a way for us to draw closer together.
I mean, here we go again, which is another incredible metaphor for, anybody in a relationship, right? You're taking this and it's so perfectly to every marriage, right? Or any relationship. I know what it's like to be in a fight with somebody who you don't want to be in a fight with. You just feel that thickness in the air.
Yes.
Here you go. That's an amazing tip. And I love how you handled that too. Just, that's some assertiveness, right? Just, you're not ready.
Right.
Bye.
Yeah. We're obviously, if we had talked at that moment, what would have happened? We would have just both still been angry.
Yeah.
Right. And then we would have both said something else and we would have both been angrier. And then you have to fix that too. So now instead of just the first insult, now we've got extra ones, and that's what happens. And so it was like, take a step back and wait until you can breathe properly and use that logical brain instead of the emotional one and say, okay, I love this man and we're on this journey together and riding this way is not fun, and let's fix it.
Yeah, you just have to, I think that's a big part of, any type of relationship is like kind of making the decision, like, I don't want to be mad anymore. Let's make something happen. Right. I don't know if you feel the same way, but personally, when I'm angry, I feel like I want to brood sometimes. Like, there's a time where you want that and you need it sometimes, but then you have to.
And I think there's nothing wrong with it as long as you know that you're going to have an end point to that brooding. And that when you are done, you're going to go and figure out how to fix it.
Yeah, exactly.
And during the brooding, you need to be careful that you're not making things worse. So it's okay to brood, but it's not okay to brood and throw insults. Like, you need to go brood quietly away from whoever you're angry at and get it out of your system and then come back. Because otherwise, then you now have, like I said, more on top of more on top of more that you have to figure out.
Yeah. But yeah, these are just like two of the many different lessons that could be learned in your book. So for anybody listening today, I mean, please check it out. I think I had a really fun time like flipping through it. Even just little things that caught my eye, where like there's a little schedule for what you would do each day, and it was literally just like ride, eat, sleep, ride, like fun things like that. I mean, it's a great book. So again, guys, check it out. Where can they find this one? I know Amazon. Anywhere else they should be looking?
Anywhere that you can find books. And of course, you can always go to my website, which is my name, Teri M Brown, and that's Teri with one R. And you can get all my books there, and I'll sign a copy for you if you live in the States. I'll send it out to you. So
I like it. Is that one copy right behind you right there? Or is that
No, that's the book. Let me see it up here.
There we go. Okay.
That's on my poster. Yeah.
Perfect. Beautiful picture too.
Yeah.
So this is just one of your many books. So I'd also like to spend a little bit of time chatting about the others, which I didn't read, but I know there are many others. So how does that 10 Little Rules connect to the other works? I know you have like historical fiction novels.
Yeah.
Do you see common themes throughout all of them, or do you think they're completely different?
I think so. I think they're very different, except that I love characters.
Okay.
So even though this was a nonfiction, I'm kind of the character. Like, you get to really know me. You get to know my vulnerabilities and all of those things. And all of my books have really strong characters. So I have 3 historical fiction, but they're all very different. One is set in the 1970s in Ukraine. One is set during World War II. And one is set in the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina in the 1890s. So very, very different, but all of them are very character driven. And we get to see these characters be in one place and really grow into something else. And the same thing happened with me personally. I mean, when I got done with this ride, we were coming into Washington, D.C. We're going up a hill. I swear we always end going up a hill, but we were going up a hill, and Bruce said, "Do you see that flag?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "That's it. That's the memorial where we're stopping." And I started to laugh, and I started to cry, and then I'm laughing and crying, and I thought, I can do anything. I just rode across the United States on a bicycle. It's not a matter of can I do it? It's a matter of what do I want to do? And I went from being this very afraid, anxious person who had trouble even picking something like which brand of peanut butter to buy because I was so sure I'd get it wrong, to a woman who 14 months later had her first book out, and I haven't looked back since. So this story, even though it's not my fiction, is the same, where I'm a character with an arc, and I started in one place and I ended up someplace so completely different.
I love that. And you are completely right. I mean, you are a character in your own book, and that's what makes it so compelling, right? People are invested in you and your story.
Right. Yeah.
Really cool. Awesome. So I'm assuming, if people do check out your website, they'd find not only our bicycle book, but also a list of all the others. They can check it out, peruse what stands out to them. Awesome.
Absolutely. And they can also find my blog there. So if you wanted to read every single day and know what the temperature was, you can go and see the blog. And I've got a newsletter that you can sign up for. And I also have a podcast where I talk with other indie authors about the books that they've written. And so, if you're looking for your next best read online for authors, you can look for it there too.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that too. We're going to put the links to everything in the description box. So if you're listening today, wait till the end of the podcast, but then go ahead and click on all these things and check it out. Because Teri, you're really cool. Everything that you got there is something that not only brings value, but is also a fun read, entertaining, and just heartfelt. So really cool. I would also like to spend just a few minutes talking specifically about the writing process itself. You mentioned you began writing fiction in 2017 after winning the first annual Loom Ordnance Award for your short story. So I'm sure that kind of kickstarted everything. So what finally gave you the courage to go from fiction to writing after nonfiction work for so many years? It's a hard switch, right? Going from fiction.
Yeah, it is. I think part of it was just getting out of that horrible relationship. I mean, when I was in the really bad relationship, the idea of trying to write fiction terrified me, because when you're writing fiction, it's from inside of you. It's made up stuff. Like fiction, like nonfiction, I was writing things like books on how to do real estate. Well, that's easy. How do you become a first-time home buyer? Well, I look up all this information, I find it, and I find a nice way to put it out there to people. And it isn't me. But when I started wanting to write fiction, those are personal stories. Those are things that came from deep within my soul. And what if someone doesn't like them, right? You need a safe place to land. And I was in this horrible relationship. There was no safe place to land. So I think once I finally got out of that relationship, all of that desire that I'd had for many years to write, it was like words poured out of me. I mean, I went on a retreat and wrote 50,000 words in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It just poured out. Now, I'm not saying it was good, but the words were there. And I recognized, wow, this is something that I really want.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everyone goes through these kind of processes and figure out like what is best for you and all of that. It's really cool that, that retreat is a great tip too, just kind of getting away from everything. And I guess that kind of segues into something I saw in your Q&A, the idea that, real life is your writing kryptonite and that you work best away from home. So I'm sure that maybe had a part to play in it.
I do. I think that for me, when I'm at home, I am so much a mom, a grandma, a wife, neighbor, a community member, a church member. I'm these people, right? And so if my phone rings, I can't not look at it. Like I have to know. I hear a ding. Oh, it's the dryer. I need to get up and go take care of that now. Like I can't. So if I'm sitting in my office and anything disturbs me, then I'm up and taking care of everyday life. If I'm at a retreat, I know no one should be disturbing me. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't feel compelled to check my phone or to even look at my email because I'm on a retreat. I have 2 weeks away and nobody should be bothering me. And so for some reason, when I'm away, I can check my email once a day and be perfectly satisfied with that. When I'm here in my office, I check my email every 30 minutes. I can't seem to help myself. Oh, does someone need me? Does someone need me? And it's like, that's crazy, but it's what happens to me. And so getting away is like one of the best things ever. In fact, I was just given the opportunity. So in August, I'm going to get to go to a retreat in Woodstock, New York, and they're giving me 26 days. I'll be gone from August 1st to August 26th. And I'm just in my mind, I'm already thinking, oh, how much can I get done in 26 days? I'm going to have so much fun. So
have you been to Woodstock before?
No, I've never been there before. So this will be really fun. And I live in the coast of North Carolina, which is very, very hot. And August is the worst. And so to know that I'm going to be up, I got a clothing list that said that I should make sure to bring clothes for all weather because they're up in the mountain. And they said, and it can get cool at night. And I'm thinking, oh, it's going to be fabulous.
Yeah, I've been to Woodstock before. We actually had very similar. We had like a cabin and all that. So yeah, pack a light sweater for nighttime.
Yeah, and isn't that wonderful? Because here it's 82 degrees at night and 97 degrees during the day with humidity that when you walk outside you feel like you need fish gills. I mean, it's just so hot and sweaty, and so yeah, it's going to be wonderful. But in my mind, I think, boy, in 26 days.
That is.
I bet I could write 2 books.
Yeah, I mean, you said we were 50,000, and what was it, 1 week or 2 weeks left?
Yeah.
That. So yeah, I mean, there you go.
Yeah.
That's another
There we go.
opportunity, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I've talked to many authors too. The idea of getting away, a change of scenery. I personally, I mentioned before, I go out of the country a lot, so just being somewhere else, even a different time zone from the people who are usually emailing me. Like I don't get any emails because they're fast asleep or whatever.
Right. Right. There's just something about not being at home. Now, I've learned my husband was very ill. He had brain cancer and passed away this past January. But
and to all of our listeners, we did want to mention this at some point because I was very surprised and saddened to hear that too. So we are sorry.
Yeah. Because during my caregiving with him, I couldn't get away. So I had to learn to write at home, and I have learned, and I can do it, but I still prefer to be out of the house to write. In fact, even just going to a coffee shop to write, can help me, because although it's noisy, there's things going on, it's not about me. None of those noises have anything to do with me, so I don't have to pay attention to them. And when I'm home, the noises usually have to do with me. The dog needs to go out, the dryer, clothes need to be dried. Mm-hmm. I need to get something out of the freezer for dinner. I need, all of those things. And that's just not true when I'm not sitting at home.
Exactly. And I was going to mention something like that too. Going to a park to write, literally just like, maybe if your desk is always facing this way, just shift the furniture around in the room, like little things like that even sometimes can help.
And just, I don't know, clear up the cobwebs that happen in the head. So, yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, wow. What else can we touch upon here? There's so many things to talk about. I personally I have so many questions about the tandem bike aspect of this, but I know our listeners today are looking for some advice about writing. So, I think one big thing to talk about is, what exactly was the process of taking these blog posts and meshing them into a book without being too redundant or having too much content, or, choosing the right stories to tell versus others?
It's hard. It's hard because all of my stories are ones that I enjoy. So I love the fact that I get to talk about the book, because then I can often throw in a story that's not in the book, which is kind of fun, because it's like, oh, it's a story I would have loved to have included, but I couldn't. So here it is for you now in person. But what I did was I just kind of went through first reading it and taking notes in terms of, do I see any lessons? Did I learn anything here? And when I saw something, I would jot it down. Once I had my list, then I looked at it and said, now, are any of these similar? Because sometimes you think you've learned a lesson, and then it isn't until, 18 more times that you've really learned it, and it's like, oh, there it is. That's the real lesson. And so then I kind of combined those, and then I thought about what are some of the different stories. And as I would think about stories, I would jot those down. And then I just picked the ones that I felt really, really hit it the most, really showed what I was trying to talk about. And some of my stories were not about the ride. They started out like at a different point in my life where I would say, look, I learned this at this point, and it really hit home while on the ride.
Right. Okay. Right. So I guess the system was pretty much like making that list of ideas. Did you have like sticky notes, or was it mainly just
I use just a notebook. When I am writing, I type. I sit at my computer and I just... But when I'm trying to come up with like ideas, and somehow handwriting it worked for me. And I have my little shorthand of notes and arrows that point to things. And anyone else who looked at it would say it was a complete mess. And what does all that mean? But it's just, I don't know, somehow seeing it in my own handwriting on this page helps me kind of, I love lists. And so it feels good to like mark things off and move things around. And then the next thing you have to do is I came up with the rules and I came up with the stories. And then you have to come up with what's the best flow. What rules should be first? What rules should be last? Because I didn't tell things from start to finish, and my stories aren't in order. So, you might have a story about me climbing over the Rockies, and then the next thing is me back at the training, and then me at the end, and then me. So I didn't go from start to finish. So it was more like, how do these rules flow so that they feel like you almost learn one after another, instead of feeling like you're being jerked back and forth. And so I don't know, it's just a lot of, how does that feel together? How does that story flow into this next story? So
yeah, very interesting. And that it wasn't you didn't write it in a linear way.
No.
So I guess the reason behind that, based on what you just said, would be just in terms of like the content and the lessons learned. I'm curious, because it would be to make it just chronological, but
well, and I figured if someone wants chronological, they can go read my blog.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. And it's there. It's still there, and you can read every single day. You can know what temperature it was. You can know how many flat tires we had that day. You can know how many times I cried on the side of the road. You can know how hilly it was, whether we had bug problems. You can know all of that. But that isn't what I wanted the book to be. I wanted the book to be more about, like, what did I learn on this great adventure? How did it affect me? And so I don't know, I just kind of picked those things and then said, yeah, this flow feels right. And then sometimes it was like, this doesn't feel right. This one doesn't seem to belong here. Oh, it looks better here,
Yeah, so I'm guessing, does that mean there's a lot of rearranging as you started writing too, or did you have an outline set in stone that you stuck to?
I am so not a set in stone person.
Okay.
It's funny. In real life, I am. I like a list and I like to know what's going on. But in my writing life, I like things to be more organic and happen and see where my creativity takes me. And so I'm very much a pantser when it comes to my writing life. And yet in my personal life, I have lists. I have a list in the kitchen right now. I mark things off. I'll go when we're done here and mark off podcast at 5. I mean, I've got the whole thing, right? And that makes me feel so good. And I can't do it when I'm writing. If I do that for my writing life, my brain just goes, I can't do that. Like, I can't write with all of those rules. And so it's interesting to me how my everyday life is, I like it to be nice and ordered. And then my writing life is like just a mess. I just go when I write and I see where it takes me. And it's very interesting that there's those two sides of me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I totally agree too. I'm definitely more of the list and the outlining person, but there's people in all different,
Right.
paths in their writing style. And I think that's wonderful about what we do in our podcasts, you and I. We talk to people about their writing and everything, and you'll hear all these stories. And I agree with your method just as much as I use my own. So it's really cool to just dabble and see a little bit.
I think for a while, I really felt that I was doing it wrong. Like you have to have an outline, and I'm not an outliner. And so I tried to outline, and my characters just refused to play. I've got this outline and they look at it and say, no, that's not very interesting. I almost feel like my imagination is so much better than my logical, this is what we're going to do for the day, that I have to let them out to play. And they're going to do what they're going to do. And they do a better job than my outlining can do. And it just stifles me. And then I have a very good friend. We do a lot of writing stuff together. And she has everything outlined beforehand. And she knows what beats are going to happen. And she has this all done. And looking at it actually makes me anxious.
Oh,
which is so funny because my real life looks just like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just comparing it to the tandem ride again, but how it's just thinking about, the next thing in your journey. But, sometimes making a list, it makes you think about everything you have to do as opposed to just enjoying the ride.
Just enjoying the ride. Yeah. I don't know. It's just very interesting how there's just so much more than one way to write a book. There isn't the way to write a book. There is millions of ways to write a book. And did you do it right? Well, did you get a book out and are people enjoying it? Well, then you did it right. And it doesn't really matter whether you did it like James Patterson or whether you did it like, and those things don't matter. What matters is did you do it? And how did it feel to you? And is there anything you want to change the next time? And I've really learned to lean into, this is how I write. And I'm going to stop trying to write like someone else because I don't need to. I write like me, and that's good enough. And, and you have to kind of come to that point. Otherwise, you'll make yourself crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm loving that we're now kind of coming full circle again, because we're beginning to touch upon the aspect of, being afraid to start writing, that you're not going to be good enough, that your process isn't right.
Right.
We were talking about before, right? Overcoming that, putting your best foot forward. And yeah, I always love when things kind of come back to that.
Come back around. Yeah. And I don't know. I think that for me, the writing process is just a way to allow my imagination out. And if I let it out to play, it's not that I don't have to go back and clean up. I write and then I have to go back and say, okay, well, this can't happen unless something else happened first. And I have a lot of fixing to do, right? And so I tell people that I feel like what I actually do is plot in reverse. Like, I get my story out and then I go back and say, okay, there are the plot holes. How are we going to fix those? And other people just do it the other way, where they figure that out first and then they go right. And it's like, either way, you're doing the same things. And in the end, the book still comes out. It's just like, which works best for you? How are you going to do that where you feel the most comfortable?
Yeah. Well, I really do appreciate all that. That's an amazing tip. And, just branching off of that, I'm wondering, do you have any other tips for the aspiring authors listening on today's podcast?
I think one of the tips that I would give, and it's very much the way I feel about anything that you want to start, that you're afraid to start, that's like on this bucket list, oh, I wish I were a writer. Oh, I wish I could write across the United States. Oh, I wish whatever, right? Is stop wishing and start doing something. Okay. When we rode across the United States, we could not begin the day we decided that we were going to go on this adventure, but we began planning. We began finding the right equipment. We began taking practice rides. We began finding the right clothing. We began looking at routes. We began all of those things, right? And it's the same with writing. You're never going to learn to be a writer until you actually start doing it.
Right.
My first manuscript stunk. It was horrible, but it had 50,000 words, and it taught me that I had that many words. It had a beginning, a middle, an end. It had characters, it had and then I just had to learn, now, what do I do with this to make it better?
Yeah.
And so my advice then is start. If you want to be a writer, then start writing. Come up with a plan. What does that plan look like for you? Is it a write every day? Is it a write once a week? Is it a write certain number of words? Is it I'm going to find a buddy and we're going to write and then swap things once a month? Is it I'm going to find a contest that I'm going to try to put a short story in? Whatever it is, start. Because you're never going to be a writer until you do.
Exactly. And, even if you're not perfect from the beginning, there's always people to learn from, partnering up.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's kind of what you did too. You had a group of people helping you, a support system.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. And I tell people all the time, you cannot edit a blank page.
Yeah. You can.
Right. You can't move forward. You can't get better until you have something written down. So write it down and then show it to someone and then listen to what they have to say and then see what you can do to make it better. And if you can't make that piece better, well, then put that one aside and start a new piece and take what you've learned. And, and that's how you get better. You're not going to ever be a writer by thinking about it.
Exactly. It's the power of taking action, following through, a level of being accountable for yourself, staying on point with it, continuing each day to write, a whole other aspect too. Yeah, thank you for these amazing tips. I absolutely adore how, the bicycle book, really just shines light on so many stories, but in such an emotional and fun way also. And yeah, I mean, if the other books are, written the same style and everything, your amazing voice, I'm sure they're amazing reads too. So
thank you.
Yeah. So everyone, make sure you check out those books. Check out her website, follow her social media. We're going to have all of the links in the chat. Teri, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, same. And everybody, that kind of takes us to the end of the episode. At Authors on a Mission, we believe that sharing stories like Teri's really empowers us to become experts in our own right, to find our voice, and to pursue our mission with passion and purpose. So again, thank you for showing us what's possible when we challenge our limits and open ourselves to transformation. To all of our listeners, until next time, keep moving forward on your own mission, one pedal stroke at a time. Keep writing, keep leading, and keep inspiring. Have a good day. This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.